everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Batman Knightfall, the complete 3-volume series. Take a look at these comic covers right here. Now, Batman Knightfall is quite possibly the darkest, most devastating time in Batman's life. Even more so than the death of Jason Todd. Because see, with Jason Todd's death, Batman was not to blame. There's nothing he could have done differently in the situation he was put in that would have saved Jason Todd. It was not his fault. However, in Knightfall, Batman is delivered a blow, a loss so devastating that it breaks him physically, mentally, his will destroyed, his spirit gone, his emotions unchecked. And he does something that he would have never done beforehand. He contemplates whether or not he should be Batman. The story starts off with Batman returning to Gotham. He's barely able to stand, incredibly sick, and he finds Gotham in complete, utter chaos. Chaos caused by the villain known simply as Bane. Now, Bane's the new bad guy on the block, and he has one goal in mind, and that is to destroy Batman. So he starts stalking him, watching him, learning as much as he can from Batman, doing something that not many other people could do, deduce the true identity of Batman being Bruce Wayne. Bane first releases all of Arkham's inmates, many of them some of the Dark Knight's most dangerous foes, such as Joker, Mrs. Zsasz, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Film Freak, Firefly, Poison Ivy, the Mad Hatter, Ventriloquist, and more. Even some villains that weren't in Arkham roaming around like Killer Croc. Batman has to go around and stop all of them, make sure that they don't destroy Gotham on their rampage of destruction. And he does so, successfully, one by one, despite the fact he can barely even fight. Batman defeats each one of these bad guys. However, it was all part of Bane's plan, to wear down Batman. See, Bane is more than just muscle. No. Bane is an incredibly smart individual, a strategic mastermind, and he did exactly what he needed to do so that when Batman returned back to Wayne Manor, Bane was waiting for him. Pressing a button on his wrist, injecting himself with the steroid known as Venom, making himself huge, incredibly strong. He took Batman, and he broke him. Broke his back, his will, his spirit, everything. Total devastation, leaving Batman to dead, and moved on to take control of Gotham. Now, with Batman's back broken, he can no longer fight evil, so he passes the mantle of Batman on to a newcomer known as Jean-Paul Valley, or better known as Azrael. Now, Azrael starts off as a good Batman, doing a great job. However, see, Azrael's not quite okay in the head. He's a little screwy because he was mentally implanted with something called the System from the Order of St. Dumas. It causes him to go insane and pick up these crusades, and he starts believing that only he can be Batman. He starts doing things that the real Batman would never do, to the point that he would allow people to die. And he also becomes obsessed with Bane, taking down the man who broke the former Batman. While all this is going down, Bruce Wayne is rebuilding himself, learning to become the Batman again, repairing his body, his mind, his spirit, and gaining the confidence needed to once again become the Batman. So seeing that Gotham has 3 volatile, compulsive, destructive elements thrown into the mix, Jean-Paul Valley as Batman, Bane, and Bruce Wayne as Batman. When all this is put together, the question is this: who will, at the end of the day, rule the night? Who will come up on top? Who will be the controller of Gotham? On to the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Good. Well, Batman Knightfall is an epic story, and it embraces everything about it being epic. It is long. It took over a year of Batman comics to tell this story. And has so many elements to it, and so many different stories going on here. There's not just stories in general, but stories for characters too. For example, Bruce Wayne's path and story during Knightfall is completely different from that of Bane's or Azrael's or Robin's. For example, Bruce Wayne's first part of his story is that he has to go against all odds some of his most dangerous foes at the point of breaking. His body is barely able to hold himself up. And he does so successfully, showing that he is the Batman. However, he is eventually broken. Then he has to contemplate whether or not he can become Batman again, because there's someone already out there as Batman. And then he has to rebuild himself, gain his confidence back. So it's really kind of a deconstruction and reconstruction of Bruce Wayne and Batman as a character. And then on the other end, you'll have a story like Azrael, which starts off with him learning from Batman, trying to become part of this Batman family, and then actually becoming the man, Batman, only to go insane and fall into this psychotic, dark place that he goes, and needing to crawl himself out. So there's so many different stories in here, so many different elements and themes to the story that it would just take too long for me to discuss it all. The action in this is great. There's some great fight scenes in there, and there's some classy fighting as well as some superhero fighting that's a little out there, but it's still fun. And in addition to that, everyone is in character. Nightwing feels like Nightwing. Batman feels like Batman. Joker feels like Joker. This is beautifully written and well done when it comes down to characterizations. And another thing is that there's a huge cast of characters. Villains to allies to sidekicks. You'll get villains from Joker to Scarecrow, from Mad Hatter to Killer Croc, and everything in between, as well as people like Lady Shiva showing up, Commissioner Gordon, Catwoman, and allies such as Robin and Nightwing. There's a huge cast of characters, and it never gets overbearing, or none of the characters get shown too much. Just the right amount for the story. The art in this, for the most part, is good. It has its ups and downs, but it's more on the positive side than the negative side. It's the standard art from the 90s. Some of it is really good, especially the last issue. And then some of it could be so-so. But for the most part, the art is nice. And you'll go through this real quickly. It's a fast read. It's a little bit slower in the second volume, but for the most part, it's a quick read. You'll go through this like that. Bad. Well, there is one small bad. During Volume 2, Bruce Wayne goes off to save some people. However, that story is never told in Knightfall. It's never collected. It's actually told in, I believe, one of the Justice League comics. It would have been nice if they included that story, because right after Volume 2 ends, and he goes off to save these people, he's now fully healed and he's training back up to become Batman. So it would have been nice if they added that little bit. However, that's really the only bad. Whether or not you should get it. Well, I've made it no secret at all that Knightfall is my favorite Batman story. However, I need to give you a recommendation without being biased. But putting all biasness aside, I think it's pretty clear that Knightfall is one of the best Batman stories out there. It's a great gateway into Batman if you're a new fan, or even if you're an old fan. It has really all the elements to Batman that you would need. Detective work, crime fighting, action, a huge amount of cast. I mean, you have allies, villains, and neutral characters to show up. It's a great way to get into Batman because it has everything that you would want from Batman, and there's a little bit of everything for everyone. If you want a certain thing from Batman, like action and fighting, you're going to get it here. If you want tragedy, you're going to get it here. If you want struggle, you're going to get it here. If you want even detective work, you're going to get it here. There's a little bit of everything for everyone here. But it's never too little that it really takes away from the story. Everything balances out, and that's great. So I highly recommend getting Knightfall. It's a 3-volume series, as you can see, I showed you before. Well worth picking up. Each volume is going to be $19. Now, you really don't need to know too much going into this. All you really need to know is who Azrael is and Tim Drake being Robin. Everything else you can kind of pick up along the way. However, I do recommend picking up the prelude, which would be The Sword of Azrael. There was also a comic, which was a 2-issue series, The Vengeance of Bane. You can pick that up, but that's really not that necessary. So with that said, Batman Knightfall. my favorite Batman story, and definitely a high recommendation for anyone who wants to read Batman. With that said, this is Andrew saying peace out for now.